Well, Ed, this is going to get a little bit technical, so grab your paper and pen. I'm going to try to keep it as clear as I can and talk like as a carpenter would talk to a carpenter. But the source of Matthew and Luke and Polycarp and Clement are very intriguing, and I think it's worth the dive. So let's get into it. First of all, 1 Clement. So 1 Clement 13 reads like this. Pay close attention to the word in here. Be merciful that you may obtain mercy. Forgive that it may be forgiven to you. As you do, so shall it be done unto you. As you judge, so shall you be judged. As you are kind, so shall kindness be shown to you. With what measure you measure, with the same it shall be measured to you. But then, like I said, I read Polycarp. Polycarp letter to the Philippians in chapter 2, which is roughly scholars' best guess about 15 years later in time. And hundreds of miles. He's in what we call modern-day Turkey, and Clement's in Rome. So Polycarp writes, Judge not, that you may not be judged. Forgive, and it shall be forgiven unto you. Be merciful, that you may obtain mercy. With what measure you measure, it shall be measured to you again. And once more, blessed are the poor and those who are persecuted for righteous sake, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Yes, most of this is in Matthew and Luke. And recently, I released a video about Clement and stitches, how he puts together the sayings of Jesus and sayings from the Old Testament to create more powerful impact statements. But that's not what I want to focus on here. I want to focus on source. Why did Polycarp and Clement, separated by hundreds of miles and time, quote the same sayings of Jesus and more? What is their source? Bringing us to Q. Q is German for Quelle. New Testament scholars often use it as a phrase referencing the source of the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. The shared material of Matthew and Luke is roughly 25% of Matthew and 20% of Luke. So it's a big deal. And this is why New Testament scholars are so adamant, like Bart Ehrman, about the source, the Q, the Quelle. But it gets even more complicated with Clement. Did you notice that extra line of Clement? As you are kind, so shall kindness be shown to you. Not in Matthew or in Luke, but Clement claims it is a saying of Jesus. Also, did you notice, as you do, so shall it be done to you by Clement? The thoughts might be a reworking of the golden rule, like Matthew 7:12 reads, so in everything do to others what you would have them do to you. This sums up the law and the prophets. Or maybe Luke 6:31, do to others as you would have them do to you. But that's not what Clement quotes. He changes it entirely. And then Polycarp writes, he adds this extra phrase, blessed are the poor and those who are persecuted for righteous sakes, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now I got that wrong. For theirs is the kingdom of God, which is not in Clement. So he's not quoting Clement here and not using the phraseology of Clement, but he is stitching together Matthew and Luke in quoting Jesus. Let me explain. So he uses poor, blessed are the poor, which is more Lukean in saying Luke 6:20 has the poor in spirit. But Matthew 5:3, he has poor in, boy, did I get that wrong? So Matthew 5:3, poor in spirit. In Luke 6:20, it's just the poor. Woo! Okay, we got that. Okay, follow along. But then he stitches together the persecuted for righteousness clause, which is very Matthean. But then he continues with, what I messed up earlier, with kingdom of God rather than Matthew's preferred kingdom of heaven. Just a little aside here. So Matthew uses the phrase kingdom of heaven 32 times in his gospel, but it's not exclusive. He also uses kingdom of God 4 times. But Luke, on the other hand, does the same amount of times, 32 times, uses exclusively kingdom of heaven. Or kingdom of God. I keep getting those two mixed up. Kingdom of God. Mark does the same thing. He talks about kingdom of God, not of heaven, which is intriguing. But back to our search for the source. The interesting thing is, as Maurice and Casey and Joachim Jeremias, I really hope I pronounced those New Testament scholars' names correctly. They've discovered an Aramaic wordplay in these sayings of Jesus. When they back translate the passages, so this is kind of above my pay grade, but let's follow me with here. Let's try it out. So with what you measure, it shall be measured to you. So the Aramaic uses the root MDD. So it's kind of like a rhythmic thing. In Aramaic, it would sound something like this. So try it close to the point. On the screen, I'll actually write it out here. So it goes, Mi merdi da antam meredin yamarti likan. I don't know if that is all of the Aramaic like, but you get the rhythmic motion that is in there. It's a classic paranomisia. Yeah, us carpenters would just call it a wordplay. It creates a little hook in your ear. It's the ear in your ear that makes it almost impossible to forget. Similar, recently I was listening to Cody Sanchez. She talked about how good speakers will use a processing fluency effect. Woo! Big words today, big phrases. AK, as a carpenter would say, it rhymes. It really rhymes. And it creates a sense of truthfulness in your brain. Some of the phrases she used was, move slow to move fast. What you track grows back. You repeat what you don't repair. See the rhythmic motion there? Clement and Polycarp similarly preserve this when they quote Jesus in Greek, keeping the rhythm of the Aramaic, even though they're speaking Greek. But not only are they preserving the rhythmic, the rhyming of the Greek, of the Aramaic, they're also using parallel structure. You know, like when you lay your board side by side, all your joists are parallel on the floor. So the parallel structure, which is classic Aramaic and Semitic teaching style, is the action, forgive. The reaction, and you will be forgiven. The action, do. The reaction, so shall it be done unto you. See how one follows the other, cause and effect kind of thing. Raising the question, are Clement and Polycarp not quoting Matthew and Luke's stitched together sayings, but quoting an Aramaic Matthew Logia instead? As Papias suggests, as Eusebius writes, Matthew put together the oracles, the Greek word here is logia, in the Hebrew language, and each one interpreted them as best as he could. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think this would help us better explain Matthew and Luke and Clement and Polycarp? To see that there is a gospel, a collection of sayings behind it. And it's a collection of sayings that is in Aramaic, not in Greek, which Papias claims Matthew wrote first. Like I say, let's continue the conversation down in the comments. I'd really like to know what you think about this. Thanks, Ed.